Today we're outside Serre in northern France, a place that saw some tremendous fighting on the first day of the Battle of the Somme. Horace Iles was 16 years old when he died in the first 30 minutes of the Battle of the Somme, and today we're going to tell his story. Private Horace Iles was only 14 years old when the First World War broke out in 1914, and he lied about his age so that he could join the Leeds Pals. Became part of the 31st Division, along with two Bradford Pals battalions, the 15th Battalion West Yorkshire Regiment. Horace and his Leeds Pals arrived at the Somme in 1916, and on the 22nd of May he was wounded in the trenches, and he was given 7 days leave when he went home. That was going to be the last time his family saw him. When he was home, Horace's family tried hard to convince him to tell the authorities his real age, knowing that they would have to then send him home. But Horace didn't want to let down his friends. He didn't want to let down his Leeds Pals. And so he returned here to the front, just in time for the big push of the Somme. For the Leeds Pals, the Battle of the Somme would start here at Serre. Now, right now, I'm actually stood in what was the frontline British trenches. Now, this particular piece of trench here was actually where the 12th and 13th regiments went from. This is where the quite famous Accrington Pals would have left their trench from, right here in front of me. Horace actually left his trench with the Leeds Pals further down to my right-hand side, so slightly kind of almost south, sort of west from where we are right now. And we'll walk down there in just a minute. But their objective was to capture the hilltop fortress of Serre. Now you can see out here behind me, this ridge here, and going up this hill was towards Serre. Okay, so we've walked a little bit up, further to the right-hand side of where we were, and roughly here, roughly along the edge of this road line, is where the frontline trenches would have been, where Horace and his Leeds Pals would have advanced out of this trench and across this field towards Serre. Serre is kind of there, you can just roughly see farm buildings. That's where they would have advanced. Out from here, across the field there. Now the regiments here didn't have to advance far from the front line of the trench right here. The German trench line was pretty much just the other side of where you can see this cemetery, so they did not have hugely far to advance. It was meant to be a swift and decisive attack, but it ended up being one of the most deadly battles in human history. And the Leeds Pals, along with several other regiments here, were one of those battalions that was nearly completely wiped out. The men here had been told that after days of artillery bombardment on the German lines, the defences would be almost non-existent, and that they would be able to advance out of these trenches and walk forwards and take the German front lines. But in reality, the Germans had been hidden deep down in deep dugouts and had avoided that artillery bombardment. As soon as it stopped, they came out, manned their machine guns and manned their defences. At 7 AM, the officers' whistles went and the first row went over the top. The Accrington Pals went first from these trenches right here, heading out towards Serre. They were cut to pieces. At 7:20, the whistles went once more, and Horace and his Leeds Pals left their trenches from over here to our right-hand side, advancing towards Serre. Facing machine gun fire, mortar fire, artillery bombardment, men were just getting cut down left, right and centre. Some hit as soon as they left their frontline trenches. So I'm just walking out now from the British front line. As I said, the Accrington Pals left their trenches here behind us, and the Leeds Pals and Horace left just over here to my right-hand side, advancing here towards the German lines. Okay, so I've advanced forwards now, and you can see I'm not that far out from where that frontline trench was. Horace would have attacked from here, across this field with his Leeds Pals, and where I'm stood right now, really only a few hundred yards out into no man's land. This was about as far as most of the men got in the first 10 minutes of the battle here. Nearly half of the Leeds Pals had been killed, along with Horace Iles. At the end of that terrible day, only 47 of the 650 Leeds pals that went over the top had survived, the rest either wounded, killed or missing. 8 days later, on the 9th of July, not knowing Horace's fate, his sister wrote a letter to him, and I've got that letter right here. I'm going to read it now. "We did hear that they're fetching all back from France under 19. For goodness sake, Horace, tell them how old you are. I'm sure they'll send you back if they know you're only 16. You've seen quite enough now. Just chuck it up and try to get back. You won't fare no worse for it. If you don't do it now, you'll come back in bits, and we want the whole of you." It was too late. Horace was already dead, and Florrie's letter was returned unopened, marked on the front, "Killed in action." That's how Florrie found out that her 16-year-old brother had been killed here at the Somme, with a letter returned marked "Killed in action" on the front. Now, before we finish this story, we've got one more place to visit, which is just about 5 or 6 minutes walk from here. So here we are at the Serre No. 1 cemetery, the final resting place of Private Horace Iles. Now there's an awful lot of men in this cemetery who were killed in the Great War, but it doesn't feel right calling Horace Iles a man. This was a boy, a child who was killed in the horrors of this war, and it just shows you the tragedy of what went on here. Horace Iles, West Yorkshire Regiment, killed 1st of July 1916.